This is 100 ways to get isekai'd in anime. I know Truck-kun is widely believed to be the most likely culprit, but you'd be surprised to know incidents like that make up less than 1/5 of the total. I mean, in a list where almost half the entries are isekai caused by reincarnation, less than 20 are caused by trucks or some other form of traffic accident. So, to start with the ones that did, first we have good ol' Rudy from Mushoku Tensei, the most standard case of getting hit by a truck to get isekai'd out there. This differs from Sid in Eminence of Shadow, who, instead of saving some random civilian, ran in front of a truck out of pure delirium. Next, we have the totally random bike accident from Reborn as a vending machine, then a typical car accident from Reincarnated as a sword. Catalina was run over while rushing to school after a full day of playing video games, and Ernesti found himself like a deer in headlights after a long day at work. Shin Wilford just wandered out into traffic during rush hour, and Asahi got hit after saving a child from what would have been certain death. Truck-kun then got the best of these two villainesses in Most Heretical Last Boss Queen and Villainous Level 99, but somehow he also managed to get Sensei in No Longer Allowed in Another World. For this, what's funny isn't even the fact the year was 1948, it's more so a truck had managed to find him so far deep in the middle of this forest. Now, Kurihara also met her end when saving a child, while handyman Saito walked in front of a truck after getting fired from his job. A truck wasn't what sent Kana straight to another world, but it did unfortunately leave her on life support. Only after a power outage turned that life support off did Kana finally find herself in the land of Leadale. A truck had also left Yosuke in a coma, sending him to a magical world for 17 years before finally waking up again. And that's pretty much it for trucks, but in terms of other vehicular-related incidents, there's Yojo Senki's Tanya who was pushed in front of a train, Spirit Chronicles Rio whose bus was hit by a train, the world's finest assassin who died in a planned plane crash, then Kazuma who, while he thought he was going to be run over by a truck, instead gave himself a heart attack and died on the operating table while the doctors laughed at him. That's pretty much it for traffic incidents, so to move on to the next most common cause of getting isekai'd, we have the oh-so-classic overworked trope. That's right, the life of a corporate drone is just as deadly as Truck-kun. So there's the salaryman Ryoma from By the Grace of the Gods, the world-class pharmacologist Kanji from Parallel World Pharmacy, Slime 300's Aizawa who passed out right in the middle of work, Yuji's implied overwork from My Isekai Life, then Rei from I'm in Love with the Villainess. There's also Ryota from My Unique Skill Makes Me OP at level 1, Midori Akitsu who literally dropped dead on her doorstep, then finally Dahlia who died at her computer. So, while Truck-kun is certainly making the rounds on our isekai protagonists, the corporate hellscape is right up there with it. This brings us now to the more obscure deaths, where we start to see some of the more creative ways to get isekai'd. Pastry Mill Mortown got crushed by a candy statue, while our favorite slime Satoru Mikami got stabbed out of nowhere. Mine was crushed by a pile of books during an earthquake, and Yamano Mitsuha somehow found herself falling off a cliff. The entire class of So I'm a Spider was killed in a massive explosion, then Leon fell down the stairs after 100% completing the reverse harem ending in his dating sim. Hanasaki Rinko was pushed off a building by someone completely unknown to her, and Shina Kazuya died protecting 2 children from a knife-wielding criminal. Tomokui Kanata had been brutally murdered by a deranged stalker, and Luciel was randomly shot after a criminal had been taken down by the police. Next is Urabe Yukito, who, with arguably the most ridiculous of them all, died drowning as part of some crazy cult ritual started by his very own father. There's a couple that died from terminal illness too, mainly with Hiraku from Farming Life in Another World and Eileen from I'm the Villainous So I'm Taming the Final Boss. Haruto straight up died in the bed that he was isolating himself in, and Will from Faraway Paladin died from reasons unknown. The rest are accidents caused by a god or goddess themselves, leading to the incidental isekaiing of people who weren't intended to die. There's Toya from In Another World with My Smartphone, Kelvin from Black Summoner, Takumi Kaino from A Journey Through Another World raising kids while adventuring, then Kaoru in I Shall Survive Using Potions. Lastly, there's the standard reincarnation of Anisphia from Magical Revolution, and that's all the ways to get isekai'd through reincarnation. There was 19 from traffic accidents, 8 from overwork, 6 from external acts of violence, 5 from completely random circumstances, 4 from accidents caused by God, 3 miscellaneous, and 2 from terminal illness. That's less than half of all the isekai on the list, so to continue on to the next largest category, next we have isekai by higher power / magical summoning. Technically, a lot of the previous were made possible by a higher power too, but the fundamental difference with these is that the protagonist didn't have to die first. The main cause of them getting isekai'd is their summoning. So, first we have those summoned directly by a god or goddess themselves, starting with Makoto from Tsukimichi Moonlit Fantasy. Next are the 3 girls from the vintage anime Magic Knight Rayarth, and after that is Hajime's class from Arifureta. The problem children from another world were invited by what I assume is God, and the cautious hero was handpicked by Restarte herself. Yusuke and his friends are transported back and forth by this mysterious half-faced person, and Iruma was taken to the demon world after his parents sold him to a demon. The old deist had transported Shiro and Sora after defeating him in a chess match, and Mimori's entire class was summoned by a goddess while on the road during a field trip. Lastly, we have Hiragi Seichi from the Fruit of Evolution, Hinata and Tsukasa from Fabiniku, then Haruka and his classmates from Loner Life in Another World, all of which were transported by God to defeat the Demon Lord or some other mission like that. That's the extent of summoning via a higher power, but sometimes our protagonist will just get summoned by the people. Saito was summoned by the first-year mage Louise, randomly plucked from Tokyo when her summoning ritual went wrong. Shinku Izumi found himself transported out of school, summoned by a princess and her dog wielding some sort of magical weapon. Naofumi and the others were summoned by the kingdom's mages, while a very similar type of summoning happened to Saito in The Realist Hero. A princess had completed the summoning circle for Taichi and Rin in Isekai-Cheat Magician, and Mukoda Tsuyoshi was summoned as more of an afterthought for the kingdom in the campfire cooking isekai. Yusato was summoned by the king in the wrong way to use healing magic, Sei Takanachi by the kingdom's mages after a long day at work, the pro wrestler Animal Mask by a princess he then proceeded to suplex, Frio by another set of mages seeking the hero's help, then the Lost Ones through the kingdom's magecraft in the Executioner and her way of life. Setsu and his classmates were magically summoned like all the rest, while Yogiri and his classmates were transported by her. An instant changeover from the highway straight to wherever this is. Lastly, there's Conception with Itsuki's magical summoning straight into a dungeon. So, that's 14 isekai where the protagonist and or their classmates were magically summoned via some kingdom or person within that kingdom, then another 12 where it was the direct power of God themselves summoning them. It brings our totals now to this: 73 isekai covered so far, where 35% of that is from magical summoning and the other 65% from reincarnation. The next largest chunk comes from video games, so to switch over to the isekai like those, first we have the all-time classic Sword Art Online. The game itself doesn't become real, but the stakes of becoming trapped in it very much are. Yuna was transported to World Fantasy Online after opening a shady present from the administrator, while the players of Log Horizon found themselves in the game of Elder Tale for real. Suzuki Satoru awoke as Momonga in a new world after the game Yggdrasil was supposed to shut down, then Sakamoto Takuma was summoned into a world similar to Cross Reverie as the demon lord that he was always playing as. The virtual world of Amatsuki had one day become real while Tokidoki was in it, then Kon Hokaze was brought into this new world after accepting a random game invite. Tsukasa of Dot Hack Sign had his mind trapped in the MMORPG The World, while Kaga Michio was sucked into a video game after exploring strange online games over the internet. Ichiro Suzuki suddenly awoke as Sato in the game he was programming the night before, and Akira Ono wound up in his own MMORPG after trying to shut the servers down. Ark woke up as his Skeleton Knight avatar in the game world he once played so much. Kagami awoke as the female version of the Great Sage character he played in the Ark Earth Online VR MMORPG, then Shin was first trapped in a virtual game turned real like SAO, then transported 500 years to the future of that world after beating it. So, that's 14 more isekai now related to video games, bringing our total to 87. The rest are causes a bit more unique or shrouded in mystery, so they'll be in a category of their own. There's Gate, where the transportation between worlds is facilitated by a gate, War on Geminar, where the protagonist is kidnapped then transported, End Ride, where the magical summoning is triggered by a mysterious crystal, then Fushigi Yugi, where it's the incantation of a book. The characters of drifters were transported via doorways in some strange Matrix-like passageway, while Yuya could traverse between worlds using the portal in his grandfather's house. Now, I'm not too familiar with how they travel between worlds in Digimon, but from what I've read, you need a Digivice or Trainmon. A pillar of light transported Hitami Kanzaki in the vision of Escaflowne, then Shinichi Kano was kidnapped and taken during a job interview that was looking for otaku. The high school prodigies found themselves in a fantasy world after their plane crashed, while Wendelin woke up as the 8th son right in the middle of eating dinner. A random portal had opened up under Kinji in the Dungeon of Black Company. The members of the Suicide Squad were flown in via some magical portal. Arata and Awakumi switch places like it's Freaky Friday, then Sasaki can go between worlds with the power of his newfound bird friend Peeps. Lastly, there's Yuto from Master of Ragnarok, who found himself transported to Yggdrasil after taking a selfie in front of some supposed divine mirror. So that's 16 more miscellaneous ways to get Isekai'd, bringing us to a total of 103 now. Let's finish things off with some of the more mysterious ways, then tally up the final percentages from everything. There's ReZero, where Subaru just appears in the new world, Sunny Boy, where the entire school ends up in this void, Cheat Pharmacist Slow Life, where his circumstances aren't really known, then Grimgar of Fantasy and Ash, where the whole class is mysteriously summoned. That's 107 ways to get Isekai'd total, so to wrap things up and summarize it nicely for you, 44% of them were from reincarnation, 24% from some form of magical summoning, 13% from video game related incidents, 15% miscellaneous, then 4% completely unknown. To break that down even further, only 18% were from traffic accidents, of which Truck-kun wasn't even all of. Technically, God was solely responsible for only 11%, but if we take into consideration their involvement in reincarnating those who died, that number would be so much higher. In any case, that's 100 plus ways to get Isekai'd. A fun video I thought I'd share before the holidays. This actually took quite a bit of time to make, so if you liked watching it, then consider leaving a like and subscribing. If you want to see more just like it, then let me know down in the comments. For now, I'm just covering Danmachi and ReZero, so you can watch my videos on that down in the description. But anyway, until next time, ciao!